Right. So, how do you begin a show? All right. Thank you for joining me, guys. I'm here with
Yeah,
Wooz News, Rafa of
exactly,
Wooz News. He is
exactly.
he's a filmmaker, uh, specifically documenting the events of January 6th. And along with Rafa is Eric Clark, who is joining us. He will be standing trial tomorrow for the crime, apparently, of attending attending DC on January 6th, being corralled into the Capitol, taking a selfie, and leaving.
That's
But
perfect.
yes, I want the audience to get an understanding of where you were leading up to January 6th mentally, what you were expecting.
I want to say I was expecting a lot and nothing at the same time. So God had wrote it on my heart to be there, right? He wrote it on my heart to be there. Of course, I didn't believe the result of the election. I haven't trusted elections for a long time. And I hadn't even been a huge Trump supporter for that long, right? A couple years. I've been sober for a couple years. And a huge part of my story in getting sober involves God and the way he acted in my life. And so I recognized the same type of pattern that I was seeing with God and uh, sort of a message he was writing on my heart. And in a moment when I had read a Twitter post that said descend on DC. And to me, it meant that God's hand was going to descend on DC. Of course, I think in hindsight, yep, some of that probably expected this great God that we serve to write the election, right? That because a lot of us feel like that Trump was trying to set our nation back on course where our founders had it, where we had some principles that we lived by, right? Not necessarily even in our laws, but just as a people, right? Some Christian principles, not saying that those should be our laws, just that was definitely a huge part of the founding of our country, those principles. So I went with really no expectations, but part of me, kind of expected something to be done to set the ship right. So I went to the speech. I very much so enjoyed it. I tried to stay sort of spiritually in a place of prayer the whole time I was in DC. I felt like I was there representing more than just myself. It's why I wore the anonymous mask. And it was a beautiful day, right? The spirit of patriotism even in the air, it was palpable. You could feel it, patriotism and love, and even just good godliness. It was a wonderful crowd. I mean, shoulder to shoulder, and you could walk through people, and everybody wanted to tell you their name and get yours, and tell you where they were from. I'm this from this state. I'm whoever from Kentucky, and just it was a very beautiful environment. So at the end of the speech, I get that same knowing on my heart that just get to the front of the march, or get to the front of the march on the walk down to the Capitol afterwards. And I had walked to the Capitol even more or less just expecting to see more speeches, right? We had just watched a few speeches. The day before on the 5th, we went out and walked around the city and watched several speeches. So I was kind of the thought we're walking down there to watch more speeches, and maybe the congressmen do the right thing. We're going to see God act through providence, through men doing the right thing that you wouldn't expect to do the right thing, because I don't really have faith in politicians at all. I think I'm in very much the same category with Rafa on this one, and that I think they're all just one big uniparty playing political theater to pit us against against one another, so that they can continue to line their pockets and keep their criminal organization afloat.
They would have had to have been moved by an overwhelming sense of we the people need this to be right. And
Yes,
that would have been by being surrounded by, people say 1 million, people say 500,000, a lot of people being peaceful and saying that
undoubtedly,
we need this
a
to be
lot of
done right,
people.
guys. Which is strange. What ended up actually happening um, was pretty convenient for the people who didn't want to see that process played out.
It was very convenient, and so that's one of the big things that I've noticed. Hindsight, right? Because the electoral process, the certification of the vote, all of this was sort of just second thought that day, right? And even leading up to, I just assumed that everybody saw what I saw, right? Ballots
Yeah.
being pulled out from under
Yeah.
tables, mail-in BS over a pandemic, right? I kind of just figured everybody saw it, right? How can you not see it? And anybody that didn't see it was just playing some kind of Truman Show game with me, right? Like, how can you not see? This is crazy. And so it was obvious for a change that our elections are rigged, and something that I've known in my heart to be true for a long time. The whole world was seeing. So surely there would be action, right? Something would have to change now, but that doesn't seem to have been the case.
We have the idea that the truth does have to come out. The only difference then is we had a 3-month time window to have that truth be put out there, and that was heavily censored. Everything. You couldn't even find pictures of the crowd, like the actual crowd during the speech. You couldn't find. There's no aerial shots. There's no video of the actual crowd. All we got was the people in black bloc breaking windows.
No, yeah,
So
and as soon as we got home, right? As soon as I got home, my a Gmail account I had for probably 15 years was locked down. I can't even access it anymore still. Facebook, Twitter, all that gone. I mean, I did get about a week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe a little bit of time, might even been a whole month of being able to post onto Facebook before they kept flagging my account to the point where I couldn't use it anyway. So I deactivated it. But anytime it seemed like it was anything January 6th related, you would post it and you would get flagged and it'd be gone. Mm-hmm. Right. So they were very effectively censoring the truth, just in the number of people that were there.
They got a lot
and in a lot of other ways as well. Yeah.
They had a lot of practice with the COVID nonsense.
Very true. Very true.
Posting about masks or anything like that. They got really good at it.
Oh yeah, and then the arrest started over January 6th, and nobody's posting their footage anymore. They're deleting it themselves from their YouTube channels and what have you if it's managed to skim by. I've managed to recover, I think, most of it. I've got about 4,000 videos in a Dropbox. It's all CCTV, body-worn camera, public footage. I've been trying to archive every bit of it, going through it the past 3 years.
Nice.
And I have dropped that on the prosecution as my exhibits list. Right, so my exhibits list is 0.5 terabyte, 4,000 videos, and probably as much fun for them to go through is the database that they didn't give us access to.
Yeah,
was for our lawyers to go through, and me not having a lawyer, of course, they gave me a standby counsel who could handle my discovery for me. They thought, right, like I don't deserve the right to my own discovery, even being pro se. They're going to force this standby counsel on me and give that right to him.
And they call you fascist.
Yes.
Steal an election and then censor anybody that talks about it being stolen. Actually arrest people and then don't let them use the security footage to get their innocence.
No, don't even let them represent them. Give them, assign them a corrupt attorney, fire the corrupt attorney, and then go pro se and have the corrupt attorney you just fired be forced on you as what they call standby counsel, who's supposed to have only a very limited role, just like sort of filing your motions electronically for you. But as soon as it came to the matter of accessing the discovery database, he was, I mean, I have the transcript from the hearing. He was given, in the judge's word, a supervisory role over hiring my investigative team to go through that discovery database.
They got you pretty early on, right? February? And then were you moved?
So I was turned in February by my daughter, but I was already posting my own footage online, so I don't hold it against her, man. I really don't. She's my princess. I love her. I forgive her. It's okay. I was posting my own footage online anyway. They were going to come get me, and they came and got me May 6th of 2021
for a selfie in the Capitol, and then telling people that actually it wasn't all white people. There's a lot of
yes, I got they seem to make a big point of that. That's part of the evidence they used against me. Yes, because my daughter and I were having this discussion on Facebook actually early on, and she was saying, well, if this was BLM or people of minorities, right, that were there protesting, they would have just got mowed down by the crowd. And I was like, well, Pam, it was a diverse group of people. There were plenty of black folk there, Jewish folk, Muslim folk, Asian folk. I mean, if you go through just my own, I probably took 15 minutes worth of video total, maybe 10. And you get a piece of every part of the world in just the little photos I took. And there was nothing intentional about that. I was just getting pictures of the crowd. My battery I didn't want it to die. It was a long day.
And I guess if you are subjected to the mainstream narrative, you can kind of think, well, maybe my good friend or my father was up to something. Like, your goal was actually to disrupt the process whereby we could actually legitimately overturn the election. That's essentially what I'm getting from what I've read, what you're being charged with. Your intent, right?
Yeah,
Or
that's what they claim. Yes, that's my modus operandi, according to the government.
So Eric Clark was going to overthrow a capital process without any weapons.
Yeah, carpooled there with 3 people I'd never met in my life.
And you went by yourself?
Well, I carpooled into DC with 3 people that I met through Facebook. Okay. They were just happened to be going, and we're looking, if anybody else is wanting to go, and I'm going by that way. If you want to ride, I'll give you a ride. I was going to take a Greyhound. Like I said, God put it on my heart to be there. I was going to be there. I'd taken vacation from work. Was going to take a Greyhound out there, but God provided another way.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't go with anybody you knew, because then you'd also have conspiracy charges on you, right?
Like yeah, that's very true. Very true. Very true.
So give me a sense, Eric, of sort of what the feeling of arriving at the grounds of the Capitol, what that was like for you. You would watch the entire speech and made your way down there alone, I assume, or
no? I made my way down there with the gentleman that I'd carpooled with, the 3 gentlemen that I'd carpooled with, and they were kind of bigger, right? Kind of tall, a little bit heavier set, a little overweight. And so my brisk walk down to the Capitol was a almost near steady jog for them. So by the time we got there, they were kind of wore out, and they sat down there at the front corner of the reflecting pool. And I was like, I got to keep going. I got to get all the way up to the front. And so I go on up to the front of the building, right, or to the front of to the top of the steps, and on my way, I see the smoke pouring off the little chalk pellet in the ground. And I walk up and I have my conversation with Ray Epps, and I'm standing there and we're looking around, and it all seems very surreal, sort of staged. And somebody over to my left is even looking up and noticing how they keep pulling the fencing up at the top, like the bike rack that they had blocked, keeping people back. Like the guy up at the top coming from under the scaffolding the officer kept picking the fence up, moving it back like 5 feet every few minutes. So we even had the sense already that eventually they were going to let everybody just go by, which is exactly what happened. They let everyone go by.
What do you think is their goal with all this?
Yeah, their goal is eventually, right, they want total control over people. They want an authoritarian regime, a globalist rule. And part of that, you have to quash the First Amendment. You have to quash the First Amendment, and they have effectively chilled the First Amendment rights of a lot of people with this, right? People aren't going to go protest anymore when they think that it's going to turn into another January 6th false flag event, because everybody knows it was a Fedsurrection. Everybody knows it was a false flag event. It was a modern day Reichstag fire that they failed at, right? Because I say that they intended far more harm. Absolutely. I say they intended far more harm, but good people prevented that from happening. And they wanted another Reichstag fire so they could usher in their new world order. But they have effectively chilled our First Amendment rights.
They did want more, I believe my opinion about Ashley Babbitt was that was meant to spark an anger in the people, get them to pull out weapons and do more. The real people would hear that and be like, you're killing a 14-year veteran just for entering the Capitol or people's house, like that. They wanted that fire, and it didn't hurt that they made the shooter a black guy. They wanted to try and get the race there as well, and in my opinion. But
so that's what struck me with that part of Act 1, right? Was and I'm still undetermined, right? It was obviously staged, set up, but was it targeted individual and she was murdered staged, or was it what Rafa presents? I have a hard time committing myself to one path or another, but I will say my own eyewitness account corresponds with what you just said. That it was pre-planned, it was premeditated, it was intentional, right? That I think so. I was separated from that initial breach crowd by a young girl who claimed to have been pepper sprayed. And so she latches onto me up there at the Upper West Terrace, not far from that Senate wing door where they all eventually went in through. And she latches onto me, and I carry her down to the reflecting pool. And then I go back up, right? And by this time, those people had already gotten in and were spreading out through the building. Doors had been closed again and were being pushed back open again. And I come back up the second time to getting into this, like, it looked like a line forming on this ramp. And I'm kind of pushed into the building. I immediately turn around and try to leave. So let's stop there for a second, right? Because that's just one part. So why did this girl separate me from that initial crowd of people? Because she wasn't, in fact, pepper sprayed. You've probably seen the viral video of Elizabeth of Knoxville, or the Onion Girl.
Right.
And this is the girl that I carried down. So people were speculating in, like, the comments when I saw this video that she was just trying to neutralize some chemical dispersant, that it wasn't an onion and her faking, that she was trying to neutralize a chemical dispersant. So I've been going through all the footage I could find. I've been archiving it, and I continued to do so even all the way up to my trial started. And one thing I've been looking for is the moment where she is pepper sprayed. I can't find any pepper spray deployed in that entire area where she latched onto me until approximately 4:15, 4:30, after Trump had asked everyone to leave and the National Guard starts pushing everyone out. They start using chemical dispersants at the Upper West Terrace by the Senate wing door at that point. Never once before then do they use any. But this is where she was at when I ran into her, and she's claiming to have been pepper sprayed. So it makes the onion in the towel seem more like her trying to make herself cry, and it's not working because she doesn't realize the gases in those onions, when you cut them, they attract the moisture. That's why they go straight to the eye and cause the eyes to water, right? But her towel is wet. So the gases in the onion are going straight to the towel. It's why she's not effectively being able to produce the tears with the onion, because she doesn't even understand how the cutting of the onion and the eyes whole thing works.
In order to, as you said, kind of direct you to where they needed.
She separated me from that first crowd. I'm saying she separated me from that initial breach team, that team of people that went into the building: Ashley Babbitt, Taylor Hanson, John Sullivan, Jacob Chansley, Doug Jensen, George Tenney. All these people that first entered the building, they immediately spread out through this maze of a building, who congressmen will tell you they get lost in the first 6 months there. They literally need a map or a tour guide a lot of times because it's a maze of a building. But these individuals seem to go directly to waiting photo shoots and directly to doors that lead to outside, where protesters are already gathered and allowed to approach the building, to those doors, right? They don't just go to doors that are empty and open them up. They go to doors where there are people waiting and open them up, all in like 15 minutes. Right? Every door around the building that had people at it was open from the inside within 15 minutes of that initial breach. All these photo shoots that you see all over the news took place in the first 15 minutes after that initial breach. So my speculation is I was separated from that crowd because she knew I wasn't part of that crowd until at least so many of them got in. Because I would say a lot of people that arrived from the Trump speech, when they first arrived, they saw some of the smoke and the flashing going on, and they assumed that what they saw going on was real. So they stayed back. I never even really noticed what was going on, other than this. There's people all over the place already. There's no kind of control. There's no kind of organization to whatever's going on here. There's people all the way up to the top of the Capitol steps. I start walking through it, and I see this smoke pouring up to my right side, and I look down, and there's this pellet on the ground, and it's got smoke pouring off of it. And I kick it, and it's just that it's smoke. It wasn't like gas or anything. I've been exposed to CS gas. I was in the Marine Corps for a short period in the 90s before my substance abuse issues really kicked off. And I've been exposed to gas. That was smoke. So I go on past it, and mind you, God had it on my heart to get to the front. This is approaching from the speech. I go all the way to the very top of the Capitol steps and I yell out, "Hoorah!" real loud. It's a Marine Corps thing.
Mhm.
And a tall gentleman in all brown with a red MAGA cap, now identified as Ray Epps, he bends down to me and he says, "Semper Fidelis, Devil Dog. We got to hold the crowd back a little bit longer or they're going to fuck up the plan." Pardon my language. That's what he said. So you were saying earlier you thought that this conveniently gave some people a little bit of reason to be cowards, right, and not do what they knew was right, right?
Mhm.
Convenient that. So and now Ray Epps is implying that there is a plan and it involves timing. And the exact moment, if you go back and watch the footage, that the police line pulls back and lets everyone through is the exact moment that I believe it's Gates or one of the congressmen are challenging the electors for the state of Arizona.
Right.
Right. And then at that exact moment, the police line pulls back, everyone goes through, the building ends up getting breached, Congress gets evacuated, and people start carrying on their little shows.
Nancy Pelosi's daughter
For
is
the
doing a
TV
documentary.
cameras, yeah, they got the cameras there and waiting. They got all the big name streamers from they've been doing all the 2020 fake riots there. They got, I mean, all of it, right? And I say the 2020 fake riots too, because I live in Louisville, Kentucky, where the whole Breonna Taylor situation went down, and there were a lot of protests in my city. And for about 3 days after the murder or the death of George Floyd, buses of people from out of town started coming to our city, and the Breonna protest, Taylor protest, became something they hadn't been up to that point. First off, they were small up to that point. It was mostly just churches out protesting, and second off, once those buses came into town, there started to be a big rise in looting, partying in the streets, kids going out there thinking that this was just a time to party. You know, everybody's on lockdown, and these buses seem to be the root of all this issue. So the organizers, fortunately, the people that had been organizing a lot of Breonna Taylor protests at the grassroots level were members of churches, right? Like her parents and what have you. And the
Right.
churches organized the protest. So they recognized the issue with the out of town buses when a gentleman by the name of David McAtee was shot 3 days into him and ran those buses out of our city. And that all stopped. For the next 97 days, other cities had to experience the nonsense, but mine didn't. But we had things like an article here in our local or on our local one of our local news channels was about how mainstream news sources were showing Louisville on fire, right, with these protests going on, but how in actuality this was a photographer that had their camera in front of a literal like a garbage can at a bus stop was tipped over. It was set on fire. They get the camera up real close to catch the fire, you know, taking up the forefront, the foreground, looking much larger than what it really is comparatively to the background, but it's just really a few little pieces of paper burning on the ground. So the same thing that you see happened, that a lot of us see happened on January 6th, we still are failing to see was the same thing that was happening around the country in 2020. Because it's about dividing us. It's about dividing us, throwing identity politics on top of legitimate issues, and hiding, keeping us focused on one another instead of on the people lining their pockets and running the hugest criminal organization in the history of the world.
Right. Right. So I think every one of these events they utilize on both sides. So there's a version of Ashley Babbitt that they send to the Epoch Times and the Gateway Pundit, the more right wing news outlets, and then there's a version of Ashley Babbitt that they either don't show at all on mainstream media, or they share it like it was totally justified. Have the guy go on 60 Minutes or whatever and explain how Ashley Babbitt was this monster who was invading. So there's every event, it's not like designed to sway one side one way or the other. It's just designed to sway every side, and in that way divide the two sides or the three sides or the four sides, keep them further and
Yes.
further apart. So that makes, I mean, those riots,
Yeah.
I haven't looked a lot into them, but I know Rafa mentioned once that he wasn't very convinced that the Rittenhouse event went down as we were all told it did. And that, I mean, I never even thought twice about that, but the
Well,
more and
think twice
more,
about that. Think about this though. If they had the drones there to conveniently catch everything, then where were they at on January 6th?
exactly,
Where were those drones at where they could really see what exactly happened in every situation like that and break it down like you saw on national television in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial?
100% convenience. Yeah.
I mean, they could break down every assault and prove exactly what happened with those drones that just so happened to be right where they needed to be in Kenosha, right?
Yeah, and it was a much needed bone that they threw to the right. Give us a victory somehow. We're dealing with so much shit. Give us Kyle Rittenhouse being acquitted for self-defense. Okay, we're gonna ease off our efforts to fight who we should be fighting, and joining with the other side and doing that. So the more time goes on, and the more I see, it doesn't seem that crazy to me anymore about that event specifically, the Rittenhouse event. But
And that's so when I had the encounter with Ray Epps, right, I noticed that the man, he had like a sense of authority over the crowd, over the protesters. He seemed like he was sort of like a stage director, right?
control.
But I didn't really know a controller. I didn't really know what that meant at the time, right? Still, I'm a bit confused at this point. It wasn't until I'd seen him pull a gentleman up out of the crowd, and that gentleman pulls two other guys up with him, and he's whispering something to the guy. And this is right before that police line pulled back and let everyone through. So I'm noticing this, and then I'm noticing these three gentlemen that they make a beeline straight over to this corner. So I kind of follow them, and they go to like this hatch, this like cinder block hatched oak deal. It's got like a green tarnished lid on it. They open it, and at this point, I thought that they were pulling things out of it, but really what they're doing, like I've seen in the footage now, is picking up a 2x4 and a big piece of scaffolding that had been thrown down right back behind that. They pull that off, that lid off, and they're pulling out like a ladder from inside this hatch, right? It would be one that you use to climb down into the building. This hatch granted access to the inside of the building, Capitol building. And there would have been a ladder there that you climb down to get in, and that's what they were pulling up out of there.
Like it was a rehearsed
yeah
thing.
Like it was a rehearsed thing, and in my mind I'm even thinking like, isn't this like the Capitol building, isn't like Congress inside, and like this is just unlocked for somebody to come over here and open up? At that point I knew it was a movie set. At that point I knew it was all staged.
Yeah, you have the vice president in there.
Yes.
Secret Service.
Right. But so I decide I don't want to be in that area, and I go on up the steps trying to get on up to the front. And I'm thrown off again, though. I am, because when the girl grabbed onto me, pepper sprayed, I thought that was in the moment. Like this girl seemed like she needed help. I really didn't know what it was about or what have you, but she really seemed like she needed help. And it was a huge shoulder to shoulder crowd. I just wanted to get her down to the people where I came with were waiting down at the reflecting pool. And so she could get any kind of aid rendered that she might need. Or maybe it's just she's scared shitless and what's out of the area. Maybe she's claustrophobic and doesn't like crowds. I don't know. But she's clinging on to me.
The fact that she was alone is strange to me.
Well, she wasn't really alone, which I can cover more. But so she got me in the moment. It wasn't until 2 years later till I saw the footage with that onion that I was like, holy shit, that girl's faking it. That's an onion in that towel. And then I start reading in the comments, and they're saying how it's neutralizing. And then I start remembering all this footage I'm going into and my path, and how I'm having trouble finding this encounter. And so it became more obvious that it was an onion and she was faking it. Like I said, when I discovered that there's no pepper spray deployed in that area until 2 hours later. So cut and dry there, right? I mean, it's an onion. But that's not the only incident.
Go ahead, Eric.
So when I'm in the building as well, right? So you see I get kind of pushed in and kind of walking and pushed in, and I immediately try to turn around and come back out. You notice that Guy Fawkes mask, right? You see me in the footage coming in that door, you notice it. That white mask stands right out. And so I immediately turn around and try to leave the building. And then I even like Well, don't I wander for like 4 or 5 minutes, just like confused, like what's going on? Like at this moment, it's overwhelming that you're just an extra on a set, and it was very overwhelming. And I go down the hallway with everyone else that's over to the left, and I'm going down this hallway, and I'm realizing I'm going deeper into this maze of a building, and right, and I don't know where it leads. I don't know how to get out once I get deeper in. Anything could happen. The police are waving us deeper in. There's other protesters that were like in there, like go right along with the police, like waving people deeper in. So I'm like, no, wait a minute, something ain't right. And I even turn around and yell, wait a minute, they're trying to shoo us deeper in. Go back the other way. Because in my mind, it's because I really don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm an extra on a movie set. It's all very surreal. I knew one thing for certain. I wanted to at least be able to see the exit in case we are asked to leave, in case anything goes on, there's an emergency. I want to know how to get out of the building. So I went back over and I stood in that area for a while until we were asked to leave. Then I left. But I say that to say this. When I turned around and came back down that hall and told everybody, what I said was in my Kentucky accent, and I could see how somebody maybe misheard me in the moment. So I didn't question it then. I say they're shooing us deeper into the building, turn around. This guy that had been up in there in that same area the whole time that I had been, right? I knew he was there because he was a taller black gentleman. I recognized him from being in the building. As soon as I came in, he was there the whole time. This is 10 minutes after, maybe 12 minutes after the shooting had occurred in the Capitol. And this guy starts yelling at it to everybody. This guy just said a girl got shot. This guy said a girl just got shot. And that's not what I said, right? He was saying that that's what I just said, but that's not at all what I had said. What I had said was they're trying to shoo us deeper into the building. And I turn around and go back the way I came and head towards the door. Right then, I just like in that moment, you don't realize what you just heard was somebody broke character because they thought you were part of the act. Right? And now he's selling this thing that just happened, right? This whether it either happened and was premeditated and real or whatever you think about that situation. He's now selling it in the Upper West Terrace at the Senate wing door, just like they're selling it at every other exit to the Capitol at that exact same moment.
Yeah. And can you imagine if you were a scary MAGA supporter who had a gun on him and reacted to that, like by pulling out your weapon? It's amazing to me that it didn't go off. It is pretty, because there are some low IQ patriot, pro.
No, definitely
out there.
Definitely. I'd say I probably saw some of those people. I didn't witness any kind of violence. I didn't witness anybody destroying property, but I did hear some people saying some stupid shit. I did hear, somebody had wanted to pull a Chinese scroll off a wall in there, but one of the other girls was like, no, you don't know what that says. It's probably just some philosophical shit. And in an office that was open, but nobody did destroy anything in that office. Somebody made a corrected that bad thought for this girl, and we went on. When the police asked us to leave the Upper West Terrace in that Senate wing hall, everybody left without dispute, and some people even cleaned up on their way out.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that. I mean, I guess by that point, a lot of the crisis actors would have made their way
funneled through. They funneled through the building. Yeah.
Yeah, to hope for the worst, and like the narrative that I think was sort of pre-scripted. There was supposed to be blood everywhere, urine in the hallways, feces smeared on the walls, as Pelosi says in that documentary.
Yeah, they wanted to funnel everybody into that rotunda and incite them all into violence, and then start the cameras rolling. Look at there. They wanted to funnel everybody into that rotunda and then get the shit started, because that's exactly what I mean. I was standing 20 feet from a door and an officer's waving me deeper into the building in the discovery provided by the prosecution in my case.
Wow.
And then that's the point where I turn around and go back the other way. You see it on in the discovery that they put out there, right? Like they show this cop waving me deeper into the building and me be like, nope, turn around, going back the other way. So it's like they know what, they just don't think I don't know what they're thinking or not thinking.
They know you're not a danger. Like
yeah, they know
physical
I'm not a danger. They've charged me with 4 misdemeanors and told me I can't carry a firearm for the past 3 years, and I over 4 misdemeanors.
Do you think a lot of this targeted, like what's happening to you and like Alan Hostetter is are they trying to get rid of people who might have seen something? Because I think that sometimes, but I wasn't there, so.
I think sometimes that's part of it. You'd think that'd be more so the crowd that are getting locked up early, though, right? They're being held for a long period of time without trial. Either that's some type of role in and of itself, or that's those people that saw what they don't want being told.
And do you have a lot of communication with other people who are in your position? Are these things that some other people are feeling like
I
they
do.
had a similar experience?
Yes. It's the vast majority of other January 6th defendant I talked to's experience. The vast majority of let's say, other January 6ers. So that's just saying people that were there, not even charged, right? Because when you go on an obsession over this and you archive every bit of this footage as the government deletes it, right? And then you wait for a time that you can post it again, like when Elon take flight by his Twitter, and you start posting it all over Twitter, people take notice, and other defendants start calling you, and people that aren't even charged want to give you their footage. And so yes, and most people's story is my story. Yes, but they see other things in other areas that are equally suspicious.
Yeah. So their story is a different context, a different area of the Capitol, but they're feeling the same way, the same surrealness, the same sort of other people noticing that they're pulling the bike racks, other people around you noticing, like, isn't that kind of weird?
Yeah. No, somebody pointed it out to me because I'm like short. I'm like 5'6", 5'7" on a good day. I'm kind of short, and the guy next to me, 6 foot tall, he can see what's going on up there, and he's pointing it out. Like, look, they're moving the bike racks back. They're going to let everybody through.
Some shenanigans. Makes me wonder about those police or the Capitol officers who, how do you put it in Act 2? Perish so easily. How the Capitol officers,
those Capitol cops perish so easily.
What, 5 of them committed suicide within a couple
more than that.
days or weeks? I'm sure they wouldn't even tell us.
It was days.
They saw something. It would be a great dig, and I'm too lazy to do it. Figuring out where those officers were and what they were involved with on that day, because apparently it was so traumatizing that they had to take their own life. Right. I mean, wouldn't people?
There would be a good investigation.
What causes a Capitol officer so much trauma that they off themselves? Well, hopefully, there's facial recognition. There's a way to do it. Maybe I'm putting it out there.
It sounds like the trauma from some of our other officers, like Harry Dunn and Mike Fanone, perhaps was a little bit more severe. And from that, what they've written books now,
I was
and
gonna say, they got
are
book deals.
CNN correspondents and invited to these fancy dinners and red carpet events.
It's wild.
So tragic.
Yeah, some people handle trauma differently,
Yeah, clearly.
That's such a wild. The whole committee was hard to watch. It's so.
No, it was hard to watch.
People are speaking as though they're not reading, but you see their eyes going, like, who wrote this?
Right.
Like, who wrote that?
Right.
It's supposed to be an investigation.
It's all just political theater.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Nice shirt.
Say her name.
Ashley.
So I've had nonstop court hearings. Every other month I have a court hearing. I lost my job almost immediately, right? Really the week of, just because I was there. My employers found out where I was, and I just didn't like it and decided to call me mid-vacation, cancel my vacation. And so I know I'm going home now to no job. But I had a little bit of money put back.
Which they use as part of your
Absolutely.
description. Yeah. They say that you quit on the 5th. Well, Why would he quit on the field? What was he really? To me, that's what I get from their
No, that's what they're trying
perception
to
of that
imply.
information. Yeah, he was
But they're leaving
gonna
out the
go.
phone call I had with my employer on the 5th where they called and told me they were canceling my vacation and I needed to be at work at 9 p.m. at night. I worked third shift.
Well, that's
And
good that you had
it's
that phone
granted,
call.
it's Tuesday. I'm on the second day of my vacation when they're canceling it. And I'm 9 hours away from work with people I carpooled with. I didn't even drive. So you want me to be there in what, 4 hours? Yeah, I don't see that happening. I don't have a time machine. I'm finishing my vacation. Sorry about your luck. And I started getting emails from them, and they called again the next day. And finally, so they considered my job terminated the 5th, I guess, according to them. But really, it wasn't until the 7th on my way home that I put in my notice and asked for my 2 weeks vacation pay that I was owed by the company. And they never gave me that. That's okay.
Jeez.
I didn't work for them anymore. And I went, my son and his wife moved in with me with their daughter. They had actually moved in with me, I think, a couple weeks before January 6th, maybe even a month. So they were living with me. They were both working, and they were having issues with babysitters, and one of them happened to miss work or be late. And this freed me up to babysit my granddaughter while they worked and sort of paid the bills there at the apartment I had. I mean, and all the way up until March, that was great. And then the FBI kicked in my door, right, even though it was unlocked. Even though the Breonna Taylor Act had just gone into effect 4 months earlier, banning no-knock warrants in the state of Kentucky, right? They didn't stop the feds from just taking the battering ram straight to an unlocked door.
Jeez.
And coming in rifles drawn on everybody in the house, like 7:30 in the morning. And here I am, no shirt, my shorts being put on the ground, hands behind your head, cuffed up and taken out to the car. They let my son bring me out some clothes and let me get dressed before they, handcuff me again and put me in the car. And then I get taken to the jail. Meanwhile, they have my son and his wife and my 1-year-old granddaughter locked in their room for 2 hours while they go through my whole house with a fine-tooth comb. Won't let them out. And when they're done there, then they let them out so they can go through that room too, of course. So they can get pictures of Trump scarves and silly shit, right? Just silly shit. Just pictures of all over my clothes, everything all over my apartment. That it's not like, there was some illegal activity going on. It was just my apartment. All they had a warrant for was my phone and my computer, and they were both on the desk. There was no need for them to do all that, but they did. And oh yeah, and my Trump hood, my Trump hoodie, and my Guy Fawkes mask. Of course, they were on the warrant as well, but they were all right in a bag that was sitting right by the desk as well. That hoodie and that mask was. So there was no need for them to wreck my whole house like that or do whatever it is they were up to, but they did. And most employers I've had since, once they find out you were there, they let you go. Or you start getting paranoid, or maybe you're right because you get 3 different jobs in a row and there's the same guy hired behind you 3 days after you at all 3 kitchens. And I didn't like working in kitchens anyway because, like I said, I had a 25-year addiction issue, 6 years sober, and kitchens are sort of a subculture for the drug addict. You can get a job there, no problem, right, as long as you can cook and show up. So it just was an environment I didn't really like anyway. And I got obsessed with getting all things January 6th footage. It's led to me being homeless, having to depend on others here these last couple months before trial. That's okay. It's almost over. I got a job waiting for me in Florida when I get this done, and get to move on with my life. Whether that means spending some time in prison between now and whenever, we'll find out. I think I got him, though. I think I got him, citizen. I think I'm going to go in here. I'm going to win. I truly believe that God sent me, that God told me to get to the front of the line of the march, that God put me in that position to witness the political theater in the way that I did, so that maybe he can use me to expose just a little piece of it. And I firmly believe that as much as the judges and the prosecutors want to stop that from happening, if God wants it to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm praying for you, and hopefully we can get the word out on this story and have some more help in the form of prayers for your fight with this thing. I can
Absolutely.
I could see God sort of sprinkled throughout your story there. You know, sometimes he puts things in front of you for a reason. You got to fight through them. You got to have integrity and use whatever strength and skills that you have. Use your voice if you can. Provide your perspective. Who knows what helps other people when you don't even know them. So happy to hear your confidence, though. That's good. It's a good sign to me. And I just wish I had more confidence in the system itself.
Just have more
We'll see.
confidence in God. You don't have to have confidence in the system.
Sure.
Just God and the fact that He does listen, and He can do the impossible, man. He can expose one piece of something that we're all overlooking, and it change everything.
Everything. Yeah. It's true.